Hello, folks. How you doing today? Welcome to this session, folks. We're gonna continue discussing the same unit, and the content that we got for today are ethics and privacy, ethics and consumption, and public exemplarity, right? The learning objective that we got for this session, folks, are identifies key concepts related to professional ethics, and as I mentioned before, including privacy, consumption, and public behavior. Analyzes ethical situations by recognizing problems, evaluating consequences, and proposing possible solutions, and demonstrates critical thinking by expressing and justifying personal opinions about ethical dilemmas in real life context. Okay. So all of these one folks are extremely related to the same thing that we have been discussing in all of the sessions before. Okay. I would like to start with this question, folks. And as you can see on the screen, these questions don't always have simple answers, right? And that's exactly the point. Because remember that ethics is not just about knowing what is right or wrong, what is good or evil, but about thinking carefully about the decisions we make every single day in our life, right? And how they affect others. And that's why, folks, that we're going to explore these kind of things in today's lessons, okay? I would like to start, folks, with a simple question. Have you ever made a decision without making thinking, really thinking, sorry, if it was the right thing to do? Probably sharing information, buying something, or even reacting online. Have you ever made a decision about this? The truth is, folks, that we make ethical decisions every single day in our life, right? And sometimes without even noticing. In this lesson, folks, as I mentioned before, we're going to explore what professional ethics really means, something that all of you got some knowledge about it, focusing on the three key important aspects, as I mentioned at the beginning when I introduced the content, right? Privacy, consumption, and how we behave in public, right, as professionals. The idea, folks, is not just to understand these concepts, but to start thinking more critically about the choices we make and how they affect others, right? So let's start, folks. As as we have been discussing, folks, from in all of the previous sessions, folks, we have said that professional ethics are principles and values that guide us as human being we are and how we behave in our job, in our in the university, in whatever place where we are, right? Let's start with the first ethical principle that I mentioned at the beginning, folks, and is ethics and privacy. When we talk about ethics and privacy, folks, we talk about respecting people's personal information and not sharing it without permission, right? So remember that we got in the job world, there are many areas that they have to respect the people's personal information. For example, in medical area, right? And as you can appreciate on the screen, folks, we got some of the key ideas, right, for these ethical principles. We got personal data protection. We need to respect that, okay? We have the confidentiality, the consent, and responsible use of information. So if you're working with private information, don't share it, okay? So another ethical principle, folks, that we got is the ethics and consumption. This is focuses on making responsible decisions, right? When we buy products or services. So, and some of the key principles, the key characteristics, some core characteristics that we got for this ethics and consumptions are responsible choices. So we need to think first before acting, especially when buying some products or services, right? Environmental impact, we need to analyze that, especially if we're buying something which is related to the environmental, right? Fair labor conditions and consumer awareness. And the other one, the other ethical principles that we got, folks, is the public exemplarity. What do you think this talks about? What do you think public exemplarity is about? Let me tell you, folks, that when we talk about public exemplarity, this refers to how professionals behave and how their actions influence others, right? And some of the core principles that we got for these ethical principle, folks, are the rule as moral behavior, right? So we need to act with really good behavior, which is working as a model role, right? The integrity. Remember that this is one of the most important values that we have to take into consideration. Why? Because as I said before, folks, professional ethics refers to principles and values, right? That we use as human beings, and those ones are going to we're going to put into practice, are going to show how we behave where we are, right? Another core principles that we got for this one, folks, is the social responsibility, right? And the last one, the consistency. I mean, consistency in this case is related to how we live our life in the public and private life, right? As a conclusion, folks, and as you mentioned, as you heard it before, the three most important aspects of professional ethics that I mentioned before, like privacy, consumption, and public behavior, right? At the end of the day, folks, remember that ethics is not just about knowing what is right or what is wrong, or what is good or what is evil. It's about actually making good decisions, even when it's not easy, because sometimes we got some difficult situation, right? That it's hard for us to make a really good decision. That probably at the moment that was the right decision that we made, but from others has been the wrong one, right? Remember, folks, that people not always see what you do, but your action always have an impact on the society. So, folks, that has been all for today. But please be prepared to the virtual session. As usually, remember that we got some speaking questions at the beginning to interact to all of us. Remember, participation is so important, right? So if you want to practice for the answers of those questions, you can go on the platform session 11, and the speaking questions are there. So you can see, you can analyze it carefully each question, and then be prepared, be ready for the virtual sessions on Sunday. Remember that this Sunday, March 29th, is we have normal classes, okay? Please be connected on time and see you next virtual session. Bye bye, folks.